No economic development, no meaningful economic activity can proceed without an efficient system of moving goods and people.
It all began in the early 1900s. The Gold Coast, as Ghana was then called, was rich in natural resources like gold, timber, and cocoa. To exploit them, the British forged a railway line deep into the interior, signaling the beginning of Ghana Railways and Ghana's entry into the world economy.
Eventually, Ghana was a leading cocoa producer. We have been, for so many years, a major player in the hardwood timber industry. Of course, without it, the bauxite in BBNE would not have been exploited. So in that sense, it was a very catalytic role in the economy of Ghana.
By the early 1950s, the system was complete. The western line ran from Sekondi Takoradi to Kumasi. The eastern line linked Kumasi to Accra and Tema, and the central line linked Accra to Takoradi. And in those heady days of early independence, the railway was the hub of economic activity. Throughout its corridors of operation, new industries sprang up and communities thrived.
Trade was flourishing and activities was great. Traders moved up and down from their hinterland to the coast to buy goods, mostly from Sekondi, because Sekondi was the gateway of the Gold Coast.
Sekondi was the heart of Ghana Railways and home of its maintenance workshops, training ground for some of the country's finest engineers.
Engineers and mechanics are all Ghanaian and are among the finest in the world.
For me, if you talk about the railways in the good old days, you mentioned the Blue Train.
The most modern express train in all of West Africa, and Ghanaians were justifiably proud.
We did the work conscientiously. There was no lateness. There was nothing like derailment on the line. People were the workers on the line all the time.
Not that we didn't have accidents, but the accidents were few and far between.
In its heyday, the Ghana Railways employed over 16,000 people, carried 2 million tons of freight and 8 million passengers a year.
The enthusiasm and the will and the enjoyment to use the train facility was very high.
Look at the state of our railways today, and that's hard to imagine.
Well, first of all, there's been a very general decline of the economy of Ghana. I mean, from 1960, there has been a systematic decline. So let me say that the railway was not an exception. It was part of a general decline. But the first and foremost is the fact that our people did not see it as a strategic national importance.
Instead, Ghana Railways was sorely neglected, with predictable consequences. Over the years, declining traffic meant declining revenue. There wasn't the money for maintenance or spares, and breakdowns, delays and derailments became common occurrence, and cargo could take anything up to a week to reach its destination.
And a dream maybe soon if you any engines. The engines in a shorty. When you say be under 10 baba, a baba stations over factory, over by SU. A young engineer, you wait my engineer, and
By the late 70s, public confidence in Ghana Railways was at an all-time low.
Our lines were not being maintained. Derailment was the order of the day. And of course, when the articulators came, they simply took over.
Despite the fact that it's twice the cost of rail, haulage by road was seen as fast and efficient, and the railways simply couldn't compete. By the early 1980s, rail haulage figures had dropped to less than 350 tons a year. The writing was on the wall. By 1995, the rail link between Tema Harbour and Accra had ceased to function. Next to go was the central line between Accra and Sekondi Takoradi. Without the railways, Sekondi is a mere shadow of its former self.
Railways problem boys no anka railways wano anka bonsa boys bebre omo urusua eduma e wo railway shop wa ye from location.
The workshop's still here, the infrastructure, the skills and the experience. But without financial help, this once proud institution is on the brink of collapse.
You want government to help us so that when you get loan to get the spare parts.
And not the spare part alone, but oil, gas oil, and so on. So we're having a lot of problems. So if government didn't come to our aid by helping us, in fact, it will be difficult.
For the Eastern Line linking Accra to Kumasi, it's already too late. By millennium's end, it too was closed. The market women of Kumasi now have no choice but to move their goods south by road at huge cost, not just to themselves, but to the nation.
It is not only more expensive, it is more dangerous. It has a lot of implications for pollution.
Think of the cost of road maintenance. Think of the petrol we consume, paid for in scarce foreign exchange. And think of the cost of loss of life.
It's gargantuan. We are talking about billions of cedis.
The only main line working in Ghana today is the Western Line, linking Takoradi and Kumasi, and serving the mining and timber sectors. But a shortage of locomotives and wagons and the appalling state of the line has meant that the barest minimum of freight reaches Takoradi port.
Bauxite and manganese dropped drastically. Bauxite dropped up to about 50,000 tons. And if that time you are hauling over 300, 400,000 tons, you can imagine the loss to the economy.
This is Ghana Bauxite Company, Awaso.
The mine is currently producing 1 million tons. The port can handle 1 million tons, but the interlink between the mine and the port is the bottleneck.
That's Ghana Railways, which simply doesn't have the capacity to move this volume of cargo from mine to harbour. Meanwhile, the company's major client, Alcan, is looking to buy 1 million tons of bauxite from them each year.
Last year was a disaster. Last year we could only sell 495,000. They wanted 1 million. If this should continue for a long time, naturally they're going to start looking elsewhere.
With no other choice, Ghana Bauxite lent Ghana Railways $6 million to buy wagons, spare parts, and to rehabilitate the line.
The only way to move bauxite is by this track, and the track is not in good shape. If we leave it to them and they don't do it, it means we cannot produce to export.
Mining and timber are the mainstays of our economy, and the lack of an efficient railway system is costing them and the country millions. A fact government is acutely aware of. The rehabilitation of Ghana's railways has been given top priority.
And this is why we have approached OPEC, for example, for a loan of about $5 million for the rehabilitation of the Accra Tema line.
In terms of the timely movement of cargo in and out of Tema Harbour, the rehabilitation of this line is essential. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. Not 5, but hundreds of millions of dollars are needed to revive Ghana's railways. And government has taken a bold step. They've invited the private sector in.
We need the private sector for 3 main reasons. One is, of course, the provision of funds. The second is maintenance. And it costs a lot to maintain the railway system. So they are coming in here to provide funds for maintenance and finally for the operation of the system. We believe that the private sector will do a better job in managing the rail network than the public sector.
No private sector would like to mismanage the system they have put their money in, because to them the bottom line matters.
This doesn't mean that Ghana Railways is being privatized. Rather, it will be a partnership between government and the private sector. The tracks, trains and carriages remain the property of the people of Ghana. What the private sector is being asked to do is to invest in the modernization of the system and then to run it profitably.
And at the end of the concession period, 20-25 years, the entire system will come back to us.
9 international groups have expressed interest and they bid for the concession soon. Hopefully, work on the system will begin before the year is out. But rehabilitation aside, there are ambitious plans for expansion, starting right here in Accra.
When you are moving from Pokwasi in the morning to Achimota here, it's really hectic.
Daily commuting in and out of Accra is a nightmare. There's the Achimota train, but it runs just twice a day and is hopelessly inadequate. For those that travel by road, hours are spent in queues waiting for taxis. Hardly surprising that tempers were thin. Imagine the fuel we consume and the productive hours we lose in traffic like this. The first phase of expansion, then, is to create a suburban commuter network. There will be a fully operational line between Tema and Accra, and 3 new lines into the city from Dodua, Nsawam and Kaswa. Then comes the push north. From Kumasi, a western line will run through Sunyani and Techiman to Wa and Hamle, and an eastern line from Kumasi via Tamale to Paga. A branch line to the east will link Tamale to the iron deposits of Yendi, and one to the west will link Sola and Fufusu.
Just think about someone in Wa wanting to come to Accra to do business and return the same day. It's just fantastic. It will catalyze the whole economy.
Imagine what a railway line will mean to the rice and tomato farmers of Navrongo, for example.
Tomato is very perishable. So when you harvest it, you have to send it to the market immediately. When we have our peak, we have about 30% losses.
Because road transport is irregular, unreliable and expensive. And because of the state of the roads, it's also slow. And food often rots before it gets to the marketplace.
So it will be very advantageous if we have the railway network extended up here. I see it as an opportunity for our farmers here to expand their production. The motivation will be there. They will have ready markets. And of course, their standards of living will increase. And that will benefit the country. The trade will be increased between the north and the south. And that is part of development.
Development means access to markets and movement of people and goods. Mobility. Ibrahim Toure exports rice, flour and sugar to Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger.
If we have this opportunity to have the train loading our goods from the Tema port to the destination Mali, Niger, Burkina, I think it's all right. It's a very nice idea, so we like this.
The plan is not to just connect north to south. The central line will then extend to link Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire in the west and to Togo, Benin and Nigeria in the east.
From Accra to Lagos should be not more than 2 to 2.5 hours. Can you imagine the type of trade linkages with Lomé, with Benin and other things?
This is the dreamed of gateway project with Ghana as the hub.
As the president said, we are literally at the center of the world and we are at the center of West Africa. Our economy, despite all our weaknesses today, is one of the best managed in the sub-region. This is the time.
The plans are bold and ambitious, and making them happen will mean time, money and resources. But if successful, they will set Ghana firmly on the path towards the golden age of business.
We hope to achieve it. And I believe that this is the time to grasp the opportunity to make the golden age of business a reality.